social media, it's just the market's answer to a generation that demanded to perform. So the market said, here, perform everything to each other all the time for no reason. It's prison. It's horrific. It is performer and audience melded together. What do we want more than to lie in our bed at the end of the day and just watch our life as a satisfied audience member? I know very little about anything, but what I do know is that if you can live your life without an audience, you should do it.
Hello! And welcome to the Comedy Revue review.
Oh, no, Gabriel, hang on, Gabriel.
Series.
I wanted to do something different this week.
Okay.
Can we try again?
All right. Well, do you want to do?
Okay.
Will we do it then?
Beforehand. Hello, listeners. Hi. You joined us back here. You okay?
Is that
you
it?
joined... No, that wasn't it. Okay, let me try again. Hello.
All right, from the top. Here we go.
Yeah.
Do you want me to count you in?
No, I've got this. Hi, listeners. Hi, you joined us back here in the green room where we hang out before the show, don't we, Gabriel?
Yes, that's right.
Hello.
We're just relaxing pre-show, just having a little chat to each other, just having a good time.
This is what we do, isn't it? We have our deck
It's sort
chairs.
of a ritual of ours, you know, when you get to be content producers like us, you need to practice self-care. So we do things like we hang out in the green room before the show and we just chat the shit, really. Just shoot the shit.
Yeah, shoot it all.
Describe
the room to the listeners, Gabriel.
Well,
what makes it
is
green?
Green?
Yes.
To calm our nerves, because we get very anxious, don't we?
Yes.
You in particular get extremely anxious.
I do. I get anxious at certain colours. Like a bull, I get anxious when I see red.
Red, purple, orange.
Yes. Blue.
Yellow.
Yes.
Blue, green. All of them, really.
Yeah.
But the green room, green is the one that makes you the least anxious of them all.
Yes.
Or it's got some kind of a sleep-inducing effect where you're still very anxious and jangled, but you seem to be simultaneously having a difficult time staying sort of in control of your movements. So the anxiety is kind of countered by this somniferous effect.
It's an incredibly fragrant room, isn't it? The green room, and I kind of
It
wonder
stinks.
each week what you put in that fragrance.
Well, I come in here a couple hours before you show up, don't I?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You make that very clear that you have to.
I say, don't come in. Don't come in. Don't come in before 4:00. And you know, you're always like, fine, whatever. You know, you're obviously panicking because there's all colors everywhere, and you just want to go in the green room. But I go in there, and I get all little things, and I spread them around on the floor. All sorts of little things and stuff. And I spread them around.
Yes.
To keep you, more than anything, to keep you distracted before the show, so that you don't freak out. But also, lots of them smell like things that I like the smell of, like hair and dirt and cooking oils. And I spread them all on the floor so that when you come in, there's a very strong, overwhelming, sort of hot blast of air comes out and disorients you enough that I can sort of usher you out of the street into the room and get you sat down and sort of calm enough that we can actually begin the process of recording the show.
Yes. Anyway, we wanted to invite you in here because we thought we are a podcast.
Anyway, look,
we are no. This is important, Gabriel. We are a podcast, and we wanted to show, like all good podcasts, that we have a human side, and you can join us.
We're just guys.
You can chill with us. You know, we do our reviewing and we do our chilling, and
we're just normal guys in a lot of ways.
I know I made this very clear that we had to invite. You were very uncomfortable about letting the listener into our green room, but I said this is what the podcasts do. You have to show them that your lives.
Well, I was screaming and crying down the phone at you, like my smells. You know? How I don't want them to see my smells.
Yes.
You know, and you were luckily you were very in control of the situation. You let me know, you know. People need to understand, you know, that even though we are content creators and even though we are out there kind of making a difference in the world, really, in a way that they're not, we still have that sort of, you know, we still need to kick back and relax. You know, we have smells that we like, colors that freak us out. We're just like you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought we'd also just let the listeners in on another little secret, you know. If you bothered to listen to this bit of the show, you know, this is your special
feel free
reward.
to skip ahead because we're just relaxing.
Yeah.
We're just chilling out. This
was actually recorded after the show, wasn't it, Gabriel?
Yeah, and we don't know the mics are on.
Yeah. No. They've caught us unaware.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I've rushed here from Lincoln because I have to... Because we said last show that I was doing it in Lincoln, and now I feel I need to keep that pretense up.
Commute in, yeah.
Yes. I commute out to Lincoln to do the show. I commute back to the green room at the end, which is why you get there a few hours beforehand, isn't it?
Well, the green room's in international waters because... Obviously, there's no laws in international waters. That's one of the famous things about international waters.
Yes. Which is another reason why I'm suspicious of what you put in to make me feel so calm and soothing.
Look, you know, I've always said that laws and morals are very different.
Laws are written by the lawmakers.
Well, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And who, you know, everybody simultaneously hates politicians but somehow thinks laws are all great.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, some of the stuff they say is illegal. You know, in some states in America, you can't, you know, I don't know, you can't own a squirrel in the winter or whatever. You know, some of these ridiculous laws keeping entrepreneurs and thought leaders like me down, keeping me from doing the stuff that I like to do, keeping me from acquiring the rare smells I need.
What would you want to do with a squirrel, Gabriel, in the winter? Specifically.
Look,
it's okay, we're back in the green room.
You know, if you've seen Willy Wonka, the squirrels know if it's a bad nut or a good nut. You know?
Yes.
And one of the many important aspects of what I do is acquiring a extraordinary stockpile of bad nuts.
Yeah. Anyway, as I said, this was the show was recorded. This bit is recorded after the show. In case you haven't
we've
realized.
already had the conversation.
So I thought you'd just want to. I thought it'd be good just for you to apologise in advance. Well, not in advance, but for some of the things you said in this show.
I would like to,
particularly the stuff you had to say about Pudsey, which I thought was incredibly insensitive.
No, I stand by that. Yeah? I stand by what I said about Pudsey.
This is the chill room, Gabriel, okay?
Okay. But I don't want to agitate you.
So let it out now, and then you can chill, is what... That's how it works.
Well, look. The man is a fraud. He's a fraud. He's lying to you. Okay. So there will be no apology. No apologies for the Pudsey stuff is staying in. There's no way I'm editing any of that out.
Okay. Well, there we have it, listeners. And you will that's something for you to look forward to, I guess, in the show. What it was that was particularly vile.
Yes. Well, I'll apologise for the show. Every other sentence I said in the show.
Well, yeah. I was going to say, is there anything else you want to apologise for? I thought you were on particularly poor form this week, if I might say.
The bits when I was talking about stuff, the bits when I was saying things, the bits where I was using my lips and tongue and teeth to convey sounds. A lot of that stuff was out of order.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the end of the day, it's all about the art, isn't it, Rob?
Yes, it's about what's truthful and what's just a conceit, and I think that's a theme that you will feel very familiar with
if you're listening to
coming
our show. Yes,
So yeah,
absolutely. Which is coming up.
yeah.
And we don't know we're being recorded.
Yes. So we're just gonna chill, and you just chill as you listen to our show.
Yeah, listeners, if you're hearing this, which was recorded unbeknownst to us by the producers, well, we're just chilling in our stinky room.
Yes.
Just chill out.
Yeah.
You know,
Anyway.
take it sleazy.
Yeah. Take it away, Gabriel, in the past, and introduce our show.
Okay. Alright, I'll cue up the clip.
If you were offended by that, it was ironic. Isn't that fun? I meant the whole opposite of it. White guys, it's easy to be a white guy. Yeah. Yeah, white guy. We deserve a cheer once in a while. Very easy to be a white guy. Very easy. But white guys get a lot of shit, and it's not fair, because we've done a lot of things. You know, we invented a lot of stuff. White guys invented everything but peanut butter, I believe. That's what I was taught in school. Everything but peanut butter. Doesn't sound right, but the American educational system having a racial bias? No way, Joseph.
Hello!
Hello? Hello.
And
Hi,
welcome
listeners.
to the Comedy Revue.
Hello, this is Rob speaking. Hi.
It's Rob. It's me, Gabriel, and Rob.
Yes.
Again, we're here talking about Netflix comedy.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
this is a special week this week because it was my choice. I had got tired of all the old people doing comedy.
Yeah.
I wanted to freshen it up a bit. I wanted to freshen it up so much that I had to look 2 years in the past for a Netflix special.
Well, right. You know, we'll cut this out, obviously.
Yes.
And this is a conversation. Okay. And in fact, what I'll do here is I'll just play the clip from the green room where we were chatting beforehand, and I brought this up to you. So, roll clip. I thought it was weird, Rob, how I picked Kevin James last week, and you sort of said, okay, well, I'll pick next week. And I sort of said, like, you know, well, if you don't want Kevin James, we can discuss that, we can come to a conclusion next. And you were sort of, no, it's fine. I'll pick next week. And I wanted to know why. What was the thinking behind that?
Why I wanted to pick, or
well,
why
sort of why you didn't want to do a collaborative process of picking, and more just we'll take it in turns, and I don't get a say and you don't get a say on the alternating weeks where it's our turn.
Well,
sort of conch shell dynamic.
Quite frankly, Gabriel, I have had for a long time. I have had suspicions of your taste in comedy,
right?
Which I find unbelievably coarse and offensive, particularly the routine I saw you do the other week about Pudsey in the lead up to the incredible charity stuff that is going on. I don't really trust you to deal with a lot of topics, and I don't trust your ability to, with some of the comedians you pick, to talk about those topics. Sorry, it has to come out on the show, but you know,
well, we're not on the show. Don't worry. This is just we're just hanging out.
I have to say where I stand with what you said about Pudsey, particularly that he couldn't stand, which was ignorant in the extreme.
Well, not after I was done with him. The man is a fraud. Okay, well that's fair. So it bothered you that?
No.
Hang on.
You can't just come on the show and call Pudsey a fraud.
He's a fraud. He's a fraud. The man is a fraud.
What?
He's nothing but a fraud. Pudsey Bear is a simple fraud. Now,
but it's not simple because you went into quite depth to explain to what extent he was a fraud, didn't you?
Yes.
You dragged it out for a good 20 minutes live on stage.
Well, it seemed like 20 minutes, but it was closer to an hour and 20 minutes, actually.
Yeah,
and they were flashing the light at me to tell me to get down, but...
Yeah, and you, like you said, I just have to speak truth, you know?
Yeah. Unlike you, I'm not afraid of colours, so it was easy.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was... that was unnecessary. We are the way we are. So, I think it's interesting that you're so upset with my taste in comedy that you introduced this conch shell situation, but you're happy with me picking 50% of the time. Is that right?
Well, I guess we have to make a compromise. We have to keep the stars of the show happy. I couldn't make this work on my own.
Some of your opinions about percentages are being borne out to be kind of untrue here. Where really what I have control over is 50% of the show. What you have control over is 50% of the show, as opposed to one of us being the totalitarian.
Well, exactly, and I was very uncomfortable with that. I said each week we have 100% control of the show.
I see. You weren't interested in us working our way to some sort of conclusion together, because then it would be neither my decision nor yours, and that's
it would be 0% show. There would be
All right, fair enough. Hey, look, our mimosas are here. Okay, so that was a good clip.
Yes.
I'm glad we got that out of the way.
Yes.
So you unilaterally picked this week's guy, and who did you pick?
Who did I pick? Was there a choice? I mean, we did.
I don't know.
There was a choice, and I chose Bo Burnham. Make happy. It was the thing we reviewed this week.
So before I ask you why you did that, can I posit my theory as to why you did that?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, why not?
Yes, I guess you have to talk on this show as well. So,
it's 50% my show, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you first messaged me, again, this is behind the curtains and we'll edit it out. When you first messaged me, you suggested that we review a show. I can't remember who it was by, but it was called How to Act Black. Do you remember that?
Yes. Well, I remember I suggested that, yes.
And I said, no, we're not going to review a show called How to Act Black. My reasoning being that show is not for us.
No.
And I feel that what you did instead is you picked the show that was pretty much laser focused, aimed specifically at us as the audience. We are literally the very thin demographic slice of exactly the target market for this show, Bo Burnham Make Happy. Is that have I nailed it on the head there?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to try a new experience. I've always wanted to know what it was that I was doing wrong when I was trying to act black.
We picked Bo Burnham, didn't we? Instead.
Yes.
And I guess part of again, Rob picked this completely unilaterally. I was not involved in the decision. Part of the idea was, we've done two guys from the Sandlerverse who, as much as we admire them, are thought of by the sort of media elite, liberal intelligentsia to be lowbrow or sort of, low-hanging fruit, unfunny comedians who do stuff that is just sort of broad for the widest, lowest common denominator, and that's easy to take the piss out of because it's stupid and bad.
It's almost as if you can put the Sandlerverse comics in a stock, and you can get the low-hanging moldy fruit from their comedy trees and just hurl it at them.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
pagans would have
the image
done.
I had in my head when I was describing that is exactly that.
Yes.
So you thought we'd do Bo Burnham instead, who's, by contrast, a darling of the sort of media intelligentsia, critically acclaimed.
Yes.
And thought
acclaimed by all. All have claimed him in.
Being a very, very clever and funny comedian.
Yes. So you're saying that in terms of the Sandlerverse, he is a different verse.
Yeah, he's not a member of the
chorus.
Well, I mean, obviously, like we said before, the Sandlerverse is really just an umbrella term for comedy. It's a industry term.
Well, this is getting on to what I wanted to bring up with the show. So picture yourself on a beach, Gabriel.
I'm doing it.
A nice sandy beach, and right down the middle of the beach is a lovely straight line drawn in the sand. It's a sandy beach.
Ooh, that's lovely.
Nice sand. It's sort of crunchy under your feet, but not spiky. There's a nice line in the sand.
Ow! It hurts.
Yeah, stay away from the crabs. Just focus on the beach, right?
Ugh.
And on one side of the sand, it says in large letters written in the sand, comedy. Gabriel? Yes?
I'm nodding approvingly. Like,
yes.
I know that one. I know that.
And on the other line of the sand, it says, like, a kind of self-help TED talk for teenagers with, like, lights and sound effects and a few jokes, right?
Okay.
Okay. Where does that line sit? Where does Bo Burnham fit in terms of those things in the sand? If you had to put him on the beach, lay him down on a deck chair, where would he be lying? Just say.
I'd keep him away from the crabs, that's for sure. Those guys are vicious.
What I'm saying
They pinched my toe, my big toes.
Yes, yeah. I can say ignore the crabs. Just was it comedy that we watched?
Yeah.
Why is it that when a woman wears revealing clothing, she's labeled a slut, yet if I were to wear her skin as a jacket, I'm a murderer? Why? If I fuck a kid, I'm a pedophile, but if a kid fucks me, I'm a pedophile again, twice in a week?
Okay, so, if we are going to dive into this, it was a very, very weirdly written show, wasn't it?
Yes, explain what you mean by
quite unlike
that.
any comedy you would ever see live ever. Like, ever.
Yes.
Unless you specifically booked a certain kind of venue to go and see comedy at.
Okay.
It was very, very weird, but it was written specifically for the context in which you see it, if you know what I mean. I mean, I think one really good example of that is the bit where he does the joke about, what is it, continuity errors, and he sort of says, continuity errors is when things are different in one scene and then it cuts back, it does a match cut to him standing there in the same position in a different shirt, and he says, to another.
Yes.
So it's very clearly written to be a filmed Netflix special.
Yes.
Which makes it quite alien to what you might expect when you're watching a bit of comedy. Because comedy, broadly, unless you're very ambitious, is not written specifically to be filmed by Netflix.
No.
So, in that way, it seemed different to comedy.
Well, this is one thing that I was thinking when I was watching it, was would Bo Burnham be able to do stand-up if he didn't have lights and sound effects?
No, well, the answer is... So, Bo Burnham is a YouTuber, initially. And he started off doing these sort of, like, little songs and stuff that were, just little bits of viral content, where he would go up and sing a little comedy song about something and get lots of likes and comments and all that sort of stuff. And he has recently, I think, it was 2010 or something, he started translating it into stage shows. And it still is not really what... He doesn't have a comedy background. He's not got a formal or informal, like a club comedy background. He doesn't come from having watched a lot of stand-up or having performed a lot of stand-up. He went straight from being like 16 years old and being a YouTuber to being 20-something years old and being a guy on stage doing an hour-long Edinburgh show.
Yes.
So it's difficult. I think it's funny, so I think it's comedy at the end of the day. But I also, obviously he couldn't come in and do 10 minutes or 5 minutes, although maybe he could. He could go and just do one of his little songs. Probably. He'd do alright, I think.
Okay. So is that your criteria for comedy? Anything that is funny?
I mean, do we have to... Okay, so we're going to try and define comedy.
Well, that's how you've defined it.
Oh, well, we're defining stand-up comedy, not comedy,
Okay.
right? Or are we defining comedy? 'Cause if we're defining comedy, I would say anything that is designed to be funny.
Yes. And stand-up comedy?
stand-up comedy is specifically a stage, a spoken word, one-man stage performance designed to be funny.
Okay.
I don't think that if he had done no jokes and only songs, that it would have been stand-up comedy. I think that would have been a musical comedy set. But I think he did do jokes, so it was a stand-up comedy set with a lot of music in.
Okay.
How do you feel about it? I guess I'm getting the sense that you thought it wasn't comedy, what we saw.
Well, I didn't find it to be particular. I didn't think there were a lot of jokes in the show.
Yeah.
I thought there was a lot of preaching instead.
Yes, there was a lot of preaching. Yes. There was a very, very long bit. There was no jokes in at all. No funny bit at all.
Yes.
Except for there was a bit, wasn't it? So he does this bit where he gets all the house lights up.
Yes.
And he gets all the stage lights off, and he sort of talks at great length about how. What's he talking about again?
Oh, just how to be good.
It's like it's about comedy. It's about like media and entertainment not being the solution to the problems that you might have in life, and distrusting performers as a class of person, and about it was a lot of it was this very anxious, self-conscious stuff about being a very popular and famous performer and not knowing what to provide to their audience, and the complicated relationship between a performer and their audience, especially when you become that popular. And then there was one bit where he said nah, Batman, and the audience just erupted into applause out of, I guess, relief that there was a joke in it.
Okay. Did you erupt into applause out of relief as well?
No.
Okay.
I was relieved though, sort of.
Okay.
I think if I'm going to give an overview before we go into it in detail, I will say that I think I liked it. I thought it was weird. And I think generally, he says in the show, original doesn't mean it's good. And honestly, at the stage I'm at with comedy now, original is and bad is better than unoriginal and good. And I don't think it was. I thought it was original, and I don't think it was bad either. I thought it was flawed, but I thought it was quite dense with ideas, which comedy almost never ever is. And it was at times funny. It never managed to be confidently funny, in a way that really lets you enjoy it. There's such an intense anxiousness and self-consciousness to the way he writes every joke and every song that it actually never really lets you. You never get a huge laugh that lasts meaningfully before he starts apologizing for that laugh. Or doing sort of self-referential commentary on that laugh. But overall, it is better than having a guy come up and pretend to live a normal life when he obviously doesn't, It's better than... It's easily better than the other two things that we saw. Because the other two things that we saw were disingenuous in a way. And they were also just boring. They were also just... the same thing we've seen a million times before, at varying levels of quality.
What's the show about? What am I talking about, To summarize the show, though, me. But if you take one thing away from my show, I hope it's a t-shirt. We're selling them out there. And at BoBurnham.com. This is all a front for the brand. But what is the show about? What do you think, industrial piping? Close. Stay out of it.
When Bo Burnham walks off the stage at the end of an hour, do you, of what is meant to be a deep and an open and confessional show, do you feel like you actually understand the character of Bo Burnham any better? Or that
I mean, he lampshades this as well in the show. I mean, I think you're right. He says at one point, nothing in this show is true, or nothing in this show is honest. If you want honest comedians, go watch any other comedy. Which, again, betrays him as somebody who's not got that much experience of stand-up comedy. But also is kind of accurate. He conveys ideas that he has, which is a level of honesty. And, I think it's very difficult because somebody who lives a life like Bo Burnham probably lives, it's very difficult to convey something true of yourself other than the nervousness and anxiety you have around pleasing your audience, which he does convey. So there is an honesty in that.
I mean, I think there's a lot of things which are good in the show, which I'll probably get onto, and I think there is a lot in the show that is admirable. I think there's a central issue with the show that I've got a quote here, which is Bo Burnham himself about 20 minutes into the show where he's talking about country music. And he talks about the problems with country music. And he says, basically, his definition of art is the following. We might insert the clip here. That would be nice.
Yeah, go on.
I think country music gets a bad rep. Why is it that when Bruce Springsteen sings about a fucking turnpike, it is art, and then when someone sings about a horse, it's dumb inherently? I think some of the greatest songwriters of all time are country artists. Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson, And if you're writing honestly, that is art, and I would never bash that.
But he says, if you're writing honestly, that is art. Right? That is his definition of art. It's the fact that he's writing honestly about his life. What I feel is that Bo Burnham's entire set seemed to be him coming on stage and going, I'm really awkward. I'm a white guy, so I don't really have problems. Look, I had a thing which went off. It cost loads of money. I could have gave the money away, but he doesn't give the money away every time he comes on stage. The thing goes off, and he makes a comment about how he could have gave the stuff away. And then he goes around and sort of says, "Oh, it'd be awkward if I keep doing this, wouldn't it?" And a lot of his jokes, it's that sort of thing where you, instead of writing a joke, you just do something weird, and you go, "Well, that was weird, wasn't it?" And it's
there was a few of those, certainly.
And he doesn't really, at the end of the show, I don't feel like I got under the surface of him in any way. And we talked last week about whatever you say about Kevin James, he comes on stage and he tells you about what his life is like.
It's true. You do have a very complete idea of what it is to be Kevin James after watching Kevin James.
Jokes in a hotel room without understanding how his hotel room works.
Yes.
When you for me, that seemed far more honest than watching Bo Burnham for an hour.
Yeah, the honesty, the art, the idea that art is something that is honest about the person that made it or whatever, is obviously a limited definition of art. And I don't think we can get into, obviously, very obviously, and he admits it himself, Bo Burnham doesn't fulfill his criteria for art in his show. But I think the show is self-consciously not art, you know what I mean?
But I guess my fundamental problem with the show is, to what point do you stop just being self-conscious about something and actually get off your backside and do something good?
These cannons cost $200 just for that joke. I could give that money to a homeless person, make their day, and I don't do that very often. That is my first decision every morning. Not today. Nah, I'll do that tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and it's still today. Tomorrow's a relative term. We're not getting there. Makes Annie more depressing.
So what was I saying? I was saying that, the show, it's about him butting his head up against the edges of what our culture will allow in terms of a performer-audience relationship. And he's up there being... And, obviously I think part of this is deliberate, a lot of it isn't. The fact that every joke he makes, he apologizes for. Every funny line that he has, he's immediately tearing apart and analyzing after he says it. It's a very stressful and uncomfortable show to watch in a lot of ways. It's not necessarily enjoyable. A lot of the way he performs everything... Do you remember... Do you remember when we went to an open mic night in Manchester at some point? Oh, it wasn't an open mic night. I think it was just like a free comedy night somewhere. And this guy goes up and does this weird set about like pigeons and stuff. And I can't remember what the rest of the jokes were. But every time the audience laughed, he would immediately cut them off by doing a really loud, sarcastic laugh back at them. And then he would say, you know, why, what's the deal with pigeon spikes or whatever? Can't you let the pigeons alone or something? And they also go, ha ha, and you go, ha 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 ha! Just straight up, get up in their face, ha 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 ha! And I was kind of reminded of that.
Yes. By
Bo Burnham's set. It's got this very tense and strained and unhappy relationship with the idea of itself as a piece of media. He constantly lampshades the fact that what he's doing is a huge waste of money and energy for everybody involved. But I think he's clearly a clever guy. I like a lot of the ideas in the show. I think it is artistic and thoughtful, but I think it's very, very overwritten and overwrought, and I can't tell if it is that way to prove some kind of a point about the state that he's left in as a performer with a large audience and with a lot of expectations of him, or if it is just the way that he writes, and if it is just he's a very anxious and self-conscious writer, and therefore it will be difficult to enjoy any of his comedy, you know.
Mm. I mean, yes, I think there was. What did you make of the fact that that a lot of the show just seemed to be life advice?
Well,
I mean,
it's not. I think so I think the stuff about the preachy stuff walks quite a narrow line, and I think this is what I was saying about us being the audience. I think to some extent he goes after targets and ideas that he kind of expects you to be on board with already, if you know what I mean. It's kind of like how, you know, that Kevin James bit isn't aimed at actually telling off people who say they're gluten-free, who can't eat gluten or whatever. It's not actually aimed at people who can't eat lactose to try and tell them that it's dumb to... It's aimed at people who are also annoyed by those people.
Which is kind of
and
worse,
in that same way...
Isn't it?
It's an interesting question. It is worse in a way. It's actually one of the really fundamental questions about the way comedy works, is that you can't teach people stuff through comedy, really, because they're not going to enjoy it unless they already agree with you.
This is what I have to say about... At least with Adam Sandler, you have an hour of comedy before he comes on and preaches at you about how great Chris Farley is, or whatever. Compare it to somebody who gets a lot of stick, and probably rightly so, for it. If you go and see U2 concert like I have been dragged to, you get Bono coming on stage, and he wanders round to ambient music, and he goes, "Greed is bad," and the Edge is playing in the background. Right, but at least if you go to a U2 show, you get songs, and you get music and stuff, and at least Bono isn't constantly self-aware of his preachiness and stuff. I mean, watching Bo Burnham, it's like you get the bow without the no. It's just a load of just being preached at constantly by someone who's self-aware of what he's doing, and it's just what I want to say is, why is that better?
I think that's not fair.
Why?
I would say. I think there's a lot of stuff in there that is funny and good. And I think there's a lot of stuff in there, like I said, I think it never gets to stick around for long. So my example is, right, I thought the Kill Yourself song was very funny. Like, I properly laughed at the Kill Yourself song. Until he starts kind of talking about how obviously you shouldn't kill yourself.
Yes.
And then after finishing the Kill Yourself song, comes out and talks more about how you obviously shouldn't kill yourself.
Yes.
Well, I thought that as a parody of the idea of simple solutions to complex problems in life, and the idea of willing yourself out of the difficulties of life through sheer upbeat poppiness, as a parody of that, just doing an upbeat, happy song that tells you to kill yourself over and over again, is really funny, it's surprising, it was done well, and, you know, that's kind of that sort of stuff should be the meat of the show. It's just that it doesn't get very far before he doubles back on it and starts apologizing, and that's really the weakness of the show.
Do you feel that you've got to a central problem with Bo Burnham as a comedian, which is that he is so worried that he is misunderstood or unliked by his audience?
But this is what I'm saying. It's the relationship to the audience. It's the don't write a blog about this sort of thing.
Which is what I'm saying about why Kevin James Shirley is more artistic. Because Kevin James just comes on stage and presents himself as he is. It's far more confessional than Bo Burnham, constantly worried about how he's coming across to people and what message they get away from his show.
That's a very, very good point. And like I said before, it's not confident. That's the problem with the comedy. It's not confident. It's
not truthful, though, is it? It's not truthful.
I don't think that's true. I think that the show is about, and obviously, again, the problem is that a lot of the show isn't about this, and it's very patchwork, and it ends in that way, and it kind of starts in that way, but in the middle, it's all sorts of other stuff. But the show, in a very broad sense, is about how, as I said before, the difficulties of basically being a performer of any kind, and that the fundamental absurdity of being a comedian and standing up in front of a room full of people and having them all look you in the face and say something, please say something, and realizing immediately that what you have to say is, I've got a fucked up crazy looking dick, my dick's so fucked up. That's what the show is about. The sort of constant guessing himself and like self-doubt and apologizing and all that, it in a way it's thematically works into the idea of the show, right? It's part of the idea of it. He's trying to present himself as this guy who's so tortured by audience expectation that he can't even get out a coherent sentence before he starts doubting himself. And that works, and it conveys what he wants to convey well. It's just the question really is, does that make for good comedy? And in places it does, and in places it doesn't. I think it's flawed, but I like the idea. I think it's more of a coherent and interesting idea than I've seen in comedy for, a while.
Have you ever felt sad or lonely? Have you ever felt 2 feet tall? Have you ever thought, man, if only I was anybody else at all? They like to kick you when times get rough, and you give your all, but it's not enough, and sticks and stones might break your bones, but words can break your heart. But if you don't know where to go, I'll show you where to start. Kill yourself. It'll only take a minute, and you'll be happy that you did it. Just go over to your oven and shove your head in it. Kill yourself. Really, you should do it. There's really nothing to it. Just grab a mug and chug a cup of lighter fluid.
Can I say I've said a lot, and we've got into quite sort of existential discussions about.
Well, I think, like I said, I think it's a thematically dense.
Can
show,
I say
and that's
some
kind
things
of why I like it.
I thought were good about the show.
Okay, good. Let's hear it.
Just to try and balance it up a bit. I think firstly, it's. I think he understands. I mean, you said it was a show pitched at us. I thought it was a show pitched at teenagers. I don't know if you agree with that, but I feel it's I feel it's the sort of show that people of that sort of age group would. The things in it, like the way that he constantly deconstructs stuff, I think is stuff that age group will think is really clever. I don't know if that sounds really patronising.
Can I defend my position that it's for us?
Yes, okay.
I think that I agree that the constant deconstructing stuff is not as good as it seems, but I guess not aimed at us, but aimed at somebody just a step below us in terms of media literacy, which is, somebody who's like educated, middle class, spends a lot of time watching TV, going to stand up, watching Netflix, enjoying entertainment in a vague way, loves things like lip sync contest or whatever. Somebody who is, I think, somebody who's very acutely aware of the weird relationship that our culture is fostering between an audience and entertainers, and I think that's who it's aimed at. It's aimed at people who know media quite well and who have maybe started to question, or have not started to question, our place in it as performers or as audiences. I think that's who it's aimed at. It's aimed at the specific sort of people who have so little going on in their lives that that's something that they think about, basically.
I really
which is me
love
and
that
you.
point, Gabriel, and I really love the fact that in that point you basically said most of the people in society are beneath me, but you didn't do it with the constant sort of Bo Burnham approach of being
I just came out and
worried
said
of how
it.
that would come across. It's just, no, this is what I am. I'm more intelligent than you.
Lumpen proles. I'm different. I know better than most people. But, I do think, this sounds bad, but I wouldn't be doing
don't say
podcast.
that.
I wouldn't be doing a podcast if I didn't think that I had insights into comedy that most people don't have.
Yes, and Bo Burnham wouldn't be doing a show unless he felt a similar way about
quite right.
himself and his art. Yeah, that's...
Anyway,
point. Another thing, I think the way he responds and seems to, it comes across like he's anticipating the audience response. I don't know whether that is the case or whether he's just so, or whether he's put the effort in to actually do the show so much, or that the show is just incredibly well written. But the way that he seems to know exactly when the audience is going to clap or when they're going to laugh in the show, and to immediately cut it and immediately have a response to that. Like he's able to...
Yeah.
It comes across like he's in the mind of his audience and he's got them on a string and he knows exactly how they're going to respond. And if you just watch it, that might just sort of go... That might just pass you by and you might not notice it, or it might just seem quite natural. But I thought that was an incredibly impressive thing to pull off.
Well, this again... Sorry to go off on one again at length. But Bo Burnham's audience, again, you can understand why he spends his entire time thinking about these fans of his, because actually his crowd was one of the most, intrusive crowds I've seen in a big stadium show like that in a really long time. Every silence that he had, they started applauding him. Every time he gave them... He played very well off of the fact that he knew he had a crowd in there who would make noise at every possible opportunity and who would outpour as much support as they possibly can continuously throughout an hour-long show. And he quite rightly responded with disdain.
But I think this is all fitting into my overall point of what I think he's a person who seems to understand his audience incredibly well.
Yeah.
And create comedy or create a show for them that suits them incredibly well. I think that's admirable. Whatever I think about it.
So my question to you, I guess, is: do you think that his stuff about sort of fearing and hating his audience in a way and feeling kind of constricted and oppressed by them? Do you think that he does that deliberately because he thinks they will like him saying that?
Yes.
Wow. I don't necessarily disagree, but I do think that's a cynical reading of it. I think that that stuff's honest. I think that's the way he feels, and I wouldn't be surprised, because like I said, I watched that show and I saw his audience and they are rabid. And I can imagine that he feels a tremendous sense of obligation to them. I am generally, I don't know, and I think you are too, quite well disposed towards comedians who have a good level of revulsion at their audience.
But I this is part of the thing. I don't know to what extent I'm bringing responses I've had to other comedians and how I've sort of first been kind of awed by them, and then gradually, as the shtick's worn out, got more and more jaded by their
other comedians.
Whether I'm bringing that to Bo Burnham and sort of judging him with my past experience of some of the comedy I've been exposed to.
Yes, we've been burned, haven't we?
But yes,
by being fat. I mean, I'll tell you what. Actually, I was thinking about when I was watching that show, and we have to give up at this point on being a short one. And what I'll do is I'll just cut a lot out. Okay. Because I've got a lot to say about this.
Yes, well, say all you want to say at this point.
I was thinking about that mental Ricky Gervais tweet not the tweet, that mental Ricky Gervais thing earlier this year or maybe last year, where he said he's writing a Netflix show. It's all about one guy whose like wife dies and he decides he can just say whatever he wants, and all he wants to, he can just take to the streets and nobody can tell him what to say. Deeply unenviable position of being insanely famous in the age of mass audience feedback. Have a powerful laser built up of the individual streams of light of millions of different people who all suddenly have access to give you their opinion, aimed at your forehead every time you open your mouth. Millions of people attacking you on the basis of things that you are self-conscious about, which all comedians are, is just gonna melt your brain, because you become convinced that the major problem in the world is that people are having a go at each other. Bo Burnham's stand-up is the stand-up of somebody who has been online his entire time he's been a performer. A level of audience feedback that is has been completely unconscionable for every single second of human life before about 10, 20 years ago. Obsessed, so preoccupied with this idea of what people think of me. Result of somebody who's been getting millions of views on his YouTube videos since he was 16 years old. A gigantic, unimaginably huge crowd of people screaming stuff. So it is personal, I think, that show, in a way it doesn't necessarily seem, because it is an incredibly vivid painting of what happens to you when you are Bo Burnham. I found it to be not relatable, but
well, no, that's the thing. You're saying so you're saying that it's that it's personable, but you don't see it as that because you're so far removed from what Bo Burnham is.
But this is, like, remember I was complimenting Kevin James on writing his set exclusively about drifting from ice cream shop to Benihana back to the ice cream shop, because at the end of the day, at least it's honest.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, it's personal, and it's about him and his experiences.
Mm.
And I think that is, not to give my whole philosophy of what I think comedy should be, but I think trying to make a genuine, putting something real of yourself out there, and I'm not, this is high praise for Kevin James, but putting something real of yourself out there and hoping people can connect to it in a way that means something to them is kind of the best you can do. And I think, wittingly or not, and I like to think on purpose, Bo Burnham has achieved that. And that's why I thought it was an okay show.
Okay. Is there any other responses you want to have to this show?
What else did I think about the show? What have I got written down here? There's that woman who screamed, "I love you," really early on. That's just another example of his extremely,
what's bad about that? Or
yeah. Well, he's just so much, he's got so much more. The audience is just, it's like his audience is just full of those, like, people that you get sat in the front row at a gig who get drunk and start responding to things that you say.
Right.
People who just want to help you out, People who just want to be pals with you. He's got an audience of that kind of person 2,000 more plus times over. Which.
So do you almost see the show as an attempt for Bo Burnham to try and shake off his audience that's clinging to him like barnacles?
Well, this is the thing. I think I disagree with your theory that he did this because he thought the audience would like it. I think it is, as far as he is aware at least, a honest attempt to convey to them his relationship with them.
Yes.
And so, no, I think all he was trying to do was get out there how he feels about it. I think that was his idea behind it. He just, unfortunately, he had to make that into a proper comedy show because otherwise nobody would listen. Which, again, is one of the interesting themes of the show.
I mean, we've gone through Bo Burnham's definition earlier of what art is. For me, I think a lot of art is about the ability to show, don't tell. The ability to not just say, go, I'm feeling really bad, but to demonstrate that you are feeling bad. Right? It's the idea of conveying an emotion. I thought, in terms of the Bo Burnham show, there are jokes he does which are good visual jokes and well-constructed visual jokes and quite left-field ones, and they work really well. And when he does show jokes, he does it really well. But I didn't feel like he showed me any message. All the messages he wanted to get out, he very painfully drew them out and told me what he wanted to say. Which is partly why we're saying it's a preachy show, but I think that's the first step to trying to create something better, is to try and find a way of demonstrating what you want the message of the show to be, other than standing around waving your hands going, this is the message of the show for the people on the back row, I'm going to repeat it, and I'm going to... Yeah.
I agree. I do agree. I think the bits where he's just sitting there saying it directly to the audience aren't good. But I also think that he does build that general theme of the show up throughout it in small ways in parts of his jokes. And I just wish that... I think the show basically, at the end of the day, and I think anybody who's watched that show will probably disagree with me on this because... I don't know. But, I think a lot of the stuff that people really love about that show is the preachy bits where he's just talking about how he feels about things. Because, people think it's honest and real, and it is. And people think it's clever, and it's not unclever. He makes incisive points. And people think it's unusual, and it is unusual. But I think that the show would be better without them.
You think it's clever to walk on a stage for an hour and have a load of reasoned points that you've got on the world. So you say, I can walk on stage with a few lights and a few sound effects, reel off what I think about the world. It's not particularly contentious things that he's saying. It's stuff I could have picked up through a bit of scrolling on.
Well, this is where I differ from you, though, on that.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, right, so you don't think there's loads of people out there who think that loads of rap music nowadays is really bad and shallow?
Okay, but that's not the point of what he's saying, is it? That bit is a joke. What we're talking about, his points, his views on the world, is the stuff towards the end where he's talking all about, being a performer and what it means. People like that because they saw that and they went, it's the same as watching, I don't know, fucking Doug Stanhope or somebody. Somebody comes up there and just rants. It's just it's rant comedy. And, people give it a lot of applause more than anything because they like seeing somebody who articulates interesting points well. And, obviously Doug Stanhope is also a lot funnier in a lot of ways. But the stuff that people really... I think, if you think about what draws a lot of people a lot to comedians, it's the ideas. And if the ideas are good... And if the ideas are interesting or insightful or novel. And I think that Bo Burnham has interesting, insightful... I think that his stuff that he says about being a performer and the way people should approach performers and performing is A, not something that any other performer is saying, and B, pretty bang on. So at the end of the day, I like that stuff. But I will say, at the same time, I think it would have been a better comedy show without it.
Yeah. Fair enough. Anything else?
I just want to say, I want to do a little message to Bo Burnham, if you're listening out there.
Yes, Gabriel, you did mention this at the start. You said you wanted to, you had a special message, and I was like, hold on, Gabriel, wait till the end of the show.
This is different to my Kevin James message.
How are we aiming to transmit this message to Bo?
Well, what we'll do is we'll just become one of the other hundreds of thousands of people who are just DMing him.
Oh, so we're going to go around all his shows and shout it out.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll pick it outside his shows.
Yeah, okay.
We'll stand out there with billboards, or not billboards, you know what I mean. Pick a sign.
Try and first comment on all of his videos.
Stalk
online.
him, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got plenty of stalkers already. We'll just fit in with the crowd.
Well, no, I know what you could do. You need to comment on all his videos, and I'm going to create loads of profiles online, and I'm going so I can like them and try and push them up to the top.
Oh yes, try and get and reply to them a lot with just nonsense to try and push up the engagement. Absolutely, you should do that.
Yes.
So it'll be the top comment on all of his. Yes, genius. So my top comment on all of YouTube videos and all that of his would be, "Dear Bo, I'm sorry about what happened to you. I think it is one of the real evils of our society that somebody who begins out making funny jokes for their friends and family will be swept up by a monstrous and unknowable algorithmic power into massive fame and glory. without anything in their life priming them for that experience. And I'm sorry that you are now who you are when you had such pure and good intentions to begin with. I hope you can find a normal life, if not a happy one. Love from Gabriel.
I tell you what, Gabriel, I don't think I'm even going to have to up like that. I think I think that the general public will find that and they will take that comment absolutely to heart. It will become a slogan of many.
A slogan of many.
Yes, not the
Excellent.
few.
That sounds good. So I've done all my little bits. I assume you've done all yours?
Yeah, more or less.
We've run out of things to say about Bo Burnham after only an hour and 20 minutes.
Only an hour and 20 minutes.
Oy vey. Why did you pick this guy? For real? Come on, man.
What do you mean by that?
I'm just trying to have fun, you know? Just trying to have a good time reviewing funny stuff. And you're like,
who did you want me to
here's...
pick?
I don't know. I wanted you to pick, I don't know, something dumb.
Did you not think it was a good response to the stuff we'd already seen?
Yeah, I guess.
It's 100% your show next week, Gabriel. So
damn right.
You steer the ship where it needs steering. You can steer it away from the contentious beach with the line drawn on it. And Bo Burnham, we still haven't decided where he's lying on the beach, but probably away from the crabs, which is
at least away from the crabs.
Yes.
Good. Yes, that's good. So what do you rate Bo Burnham's show, Rob?
Well, I gave it Bo out of Bono. I thought that was my best line.
Oh, God, yeah.
yes.
I forgot about that. Jesus. I can't believe you've said that again now. Twice in my show.
It's 100% my show. I can say what I want. Yes.
Okay.
I
give it Bono out of Bonobo.
And that's the show.
That's the show. Bono do do do. Boop. Boom. Fucking hell.
Oh dear.
Now the show is done. I hope that you had gut trembling or something resembling fun. And if you watch this thing alone, you probably didn't laugh, but maybe a few times you exhaled out of your nose. But if you hated it, that's fair. But either way, could you find a little more time for a parting questionnaire? On a scale from 1 to 0, are you happy? 'Cause you're on your own from here, so are you happy? I'm open to suggestions. Are you happy? But what the fuck kind of question is, am I happy? I really want to try to get happy, and I think that I could get it if I didn't always panic every time I'm unhappy. Like I'm owed some life, or I'm always like happy, which is stupid because I wouldn't even want it if I got it. Wait, oh God, my dad was right. So if you know or ever knew how to be happy, on a scale from 1 to 2 now, are you happy? You're everything you hated. Are you happy? Hey look Ma, I made it. Are you happy?